All right, hello everybody. How's it going? This is Immigration Attorney Moumita. I'm coming to you live to talk to you about immigration and to see the questions that you may have on your mind tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Moumita Rahman, and I'm an immigration attorney. I have been practicing immigration law for the past 15 years, and it is my pleasure to do the work that I do because I believe that immigrants make America great already. So thank you for joining. Welcome to my live. Thank you for being a follower, and if you are a current client, thank you for being a client. Thank you for trusting us with your case, and also, of course, for your continued patience as we work through all of these challenges with this government together. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about what your immigration questions are. And I'm going to give you some immigration updates and let you know what is new, what is changing in this immigration world, because we actually have a lot of updates that we need to cover. Number one, the first update that you must know about is about work permits and what to do if you have a current work permit that is about to expire and you just found out that the US government is not going to give automatic extensions to the majority of work permits any longer. So let's first talk about that update. And hello to everybody. Hello. Let me know what country you're from. Let me know what state you're from. If you're a current client, again, hello. Harry, hello. How are you doing? Sai, here's the Q&A right now. I had to start a little bit later as I had to finish some work, but let's go ahead and talk. So let's talk. I see I've got some questions today. Rishi, does working remotely from outside of US not allowed? Will CBP deny entry? Well, that's actually very interesting. Technically, even if you're visiting the United States, you're here on a work on a non-immigrant visa that does not allow work like a visit visa. Technically, even working remotely might constitute as unemployment, as unauthorized employment. So that's that question. But let's talk about what to do if you have a work permit that is going to be expiring sometime in the near future and you have not yet applied for your renewal. What will happen to your ability to work? Well, if you were not aware of this latest update, latest and greatest update from this current government regarding immigration, work authorizations are no longer going to receive automatic extensions when you file for a renewal for the majority of work permit categories. This means that as of October 30th, if you are filing a renewal of your work authorization on October 30th or later, you will likely not receive an automatic extension of your ability to work. However, the only category of people that this is not going to affect are going to be persons with a TPS work authorization. If your work authorization is underneath a TPS category, then you will be okay. Everybody else, you are not going to receive an automatic extension any longer. This is really, really sad news, bad news, because of the fact that the US government takes a very long time to renew work permits, which is why they started to give a 540-day extension. They're no longer giving it. So what are the things that you can do to protect yourself? Number one, get your work authorization filed as early as possible. The earliest you can file your work authorization application to renew is going to be 180 days before your work permit expires, okay? And you just have to make plans because the chances are pretty high that they're not going to approve your renewal application within 180 days. We have been seeing them take an average of almost a year sometimes to process work permit renewals, okay? So just everybody, you need to plan for this unfortunate event should it happen. Will this last forever? Likely not, because most likely what I predict is that when the first people who are not going to get their renewal work authorization, when their applications are not approved in time, someone is going to sue the government, and then we're going to see a change. So don't lose all hope yet. We have yet to see what's going to happen, but as of right now, this is the latest important information that you must know. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Fabian from Texas. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo están ustedes? How much is a divorce waiver from Suna Asir? Suna Asir, if you have a 2-year conditional card and you are divorced from your husband or from your wife, you cannot file a joint application to renew your I-751 to remove conditions. You need to ask for something called the divorce waiver. So what is a divorce waiver? Basically, you are telling USCIS that you are now legally, your marriage is legally over, it's terminated from the US citizen who sponsored you for a green card, and you are requesting a waiver to remove conditions of your 2-year card by showing that you still married your spouse in good faith. And to do this, you need to show lots of documentation. You need to show that your marriage was legitimate, because automatically when you have a 2-year green card and you're no longer with your spouse, your case is put into a higher category of fraud almost, because they do not like it. So you need to have your case put together really, really well. You're probably going to get called for an interview, so that you will need to be able to credibly explain what happened during your case. And don't worry, guys, we actually just got approved. The latest approval that we just got of one of our green cards for our clients was exactly for a divorce waiver for an I-751, and our client had an interview. He did amazing. He did amazing. Our attorney Nikita McDonald accompanied him to his interview, and they did great. Okay, so how much is the waiver going to cost? Well, you've got to give us a call so we can assess your case, because there might be some other complications, and before any attorney can give you a fee, they need to understand what is happening in your case and what the complications are before we can tell you the price, because otherwise, you don't know what you need to do, and we don't know what we have to do for you. How can we give you a price? And if you want to find out how we can help you, give us a call at 212-248-7907. Now, this brings me to another important information, which is the fact that if you have filed your I-751 application together with your spouse, and you're together at the time that you file, but this case takes like 2 to sometimes 3 years for the government to process. What happens if you guys separate during this time and you get divorced? And do you need to let USCIS know that you're no longer with your spouse, even though you filed the joint application together? And the answer is yes, of course. You have to let USCIS know, because if you don't, then even if your card gets approved, theoretically, you can still get approved for your 10-year card without letting them know. But if that happens, they are going to accuse you of fraud, and you can even have your green card status revoked in the future. You don't want to be there, okay? So make sure you let USCIS know. And if you are in a situation where you filed with your spouse, you are no longer with your spouse, you have filed for divorce, or they have filed for divorce, or they've left you, you need to take action now to find out what you can do to protect yourself. And you have to take the proper legal action. So give us a call, 212-248-7907. Okay, Marvin, hello. Marvin is from Nicaragua. I'm a US resident. I petitioned my I-130. It was approved in January 24, and we submitted everything else. She is to receive it. Marvin, my love, tell me what your question is. I can't tell what your question is. Okay, let's see. Miss, I hope I say this right. Miss Gaone from Botswana, now in California, filed a VAWA in 2025. And I already did my biometrics. Is my case affected? Miss Gaone, I think you might be asking for about the work permit renewal. And yes, your work permit renewal might be affected, but if you just filed, then you are probably going to get a 5-year work permit. So most people, that's the good news. Most people usually have a 5-year work permit underneath most categories. So hopefully you don't have to renew anytime soon. Emmanuel, hello. What advice if we need to renew within a 2-year time period when it's about to expire? Emmanuel, all I can say is that, the best thing is that you should apply for your renewal for your work authorization about 6 months before it's set to expire, okay? Sai's asking, do you think it would help my VAWA petition if my wife has had ongoing and past criminal cases on her, including assault and carrying unregistered firearm, and also illegal possession of cannabis from Sai? That is a very good question. If you are in a bad marriage, your spouse is abusive to you, and you need to self-petition for a green card based upon VAWA. If your spouse has a prior criminal record, then you could certainly use that to help support your case, to show that, just kind of like what kind of a moral character your spouse has. Because if your spouse is prone to violence already, if your spouse is prone to breaking the law, then for me, it's not a far stretch that they might use that against you. They might use violence against you, that they won't be afraid to treat you in certain ways that are uncalled for. So a lot of times, somebody with an extensive criminal record, if they're a U.S. citizen, they're marrying somebody, this is where you really need to watch out for. I have had a lot of cases. We have had a lot of cases and a lot of clients here at this firm who marry somebody who they're in love with, and they don't find out until later, until after they have already married their U.S. citizen or green card holding spouse. They don't find out sometimes until the interview that their spouse has a criminal record. Now think about this, guys. If you marry somebody and your spouse does not disclose to you that they have a criminal background, and you marry them based upon the assumption that they are a certain type of person, and you only later find out, once you have already signed that marriage certificate, once you have already joined yourselves in holy matrimony, that your spouse is not who you thought they were. This is called manipulation, guys, because your spouse intentionally withheld information from you in order to get you into that marriage. Because had they not, had they told you that information, you would have made a choice out of your own free will whether or not you enter into that marriage. But if they withhold that information from you, you are entering into that marriage really not of your own free will, right? You didn't really make an informed choice. And this also applies to the fact of whether your U.S. citizen spouse has a previous marriage. A lot of people end up marrying somebody and they never knew until later that their spouse was married before. Sometimes they're still married and they enter into a marriage with you. Sometimes you marry somebody and you never knew that they had kids from before. Again, this is all about free choice. When your husband or your wife does not disclose these things to you, then they are robbing you of free choice and essentially manipulating you into that decision to get married. And this is one of the bases, this is one of the foundations of emotional abuse. And when that happens, there's a lot more other things that will happen too. And that's what I have unfortunately seen in a lot of our cases. And if you are in that situation, and maybe you've already filed your green card application, maybe you had a very bad interview, because at your green card interview, you find out that your spouse was, has kids, was married before, has like a robbery conviction, whatever it is, and you find that out at the interview and your interview tanks, you are at risk. You are at risk of being accused of marriage fraud, and you need to take action now. And, these are foundations, these are red flags and warning signs in a case where I believe VAWA is going to be warranted. And if you're in that situation, hope is not lost, and this is your sign that you don't have to take it. You don't have to put up with that sort of manipulation and abuse, and you may have an option to file an application by yourself. So call us today at 212-248-7907. Syed, thank you for all the roses. Okay, let's see if you have a question. Can we submit the form I-75 online from Syed? Syed, you might be able to, but we don't do online filings because they end up becoming a little bit too complicated. I don't think at this point you can file an I-751 online, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't really do online filings. I'm very traditional. I'm very old school, guys. I've been an immigration lawyer for 15 years, which is maybe not that long, but I feel like it's, like we like paper. All right. I hope that helps. Ale, after the VAWA gets approved, can you get remarried on the green card through VAWA from Ale 1111? Great question. So if you are filing for VAWA, it is very important that you know that while your I-360 application is still being processed, you cannot get remarried. If you get remarried, then you destroy your eligibility for VAWA. However, after your I-360 is approved, then you can get married. However, what I would say to everybody is, if you have a VAWA in process and you want to get remarried to someone, wait until you get your green card. I think it just keeps life very simple if you at least wait for your green card. But technically, once your I-360 is approved, then you may be able to get remarried without it affecting your case, okay? I hope that helps. Thank you for the fan club over there. Okay, let's see. Calderon, Ramona, hello. I'm a client of yours. I have work authorization. Do you think I'll have a renewal before mine expires? The last correspondence state it would be automatically renewed from Calderon, Ramona. Calderon, so thank you for being a client, first of all. So if you have already submitted your renewal application, then according to the new rule that came out, you will still get your automatic extension of renewal. However, if your renewal application is sent basically today, basically after October 30th, then you no longer get that automatic renewal. Since I don't really know what the specifics of the case are right now, I can't tell exactly what your case file is or your name is from this. We would have to look it up, but I'm gonna make a note, Ramona, to make sure that we look into this, okay? So I'll have somebody contact you from the office. Okay, all right. Hope that helps. My ex-spouse scammed me for papers. How can I revoke her papers? All right, guys. Maybe this is going to be an unpopular opinion, and while I agree that there are definitely some immigrants who probably don't have good intentions, the vast majority of the cases where people come to me saying, can I revoke my husband's green card? Can I revoke my wife's green cards and papers and revoke her citizenship and all those things? Just because your marriage did not work out does not mean that it was not real. And if you are harboring such ill intention to revoke someone's papers because your relationship did not work out, that indicates to me that you probably do not have, your hands are probably not clean. Because if there are very few cases where an American citizen or, you have a lot of free will, you have a lot of free choice, and of course you can help your spouse get papers, but just because you help your spouse get papers and then the relationship does not work out does not mean that they were scamming you. I'd like you to look at your own actions, because if you are saying something so offensive, in my opinion, where you want to revoke someone's paper, that means that you probably did or said things that were possibly pretty vengeful, right? So that doesn't indicate a very healthy relationship, in my opinion. Of course, I never want anyone to get abused or harmed or scammed or cheated. And all that I'm simply saying is that just because the relationship did not work out does not mean that your spouse scammed you for papers, okay? That's what I would say. Can I expedite my marriage green card process from the prince? Yes, you can definitely expedite a number of immigration cases. The point is, though, that you need to show that your immigration case warrants an expedite because of some urgent humanitarian matter, and you have to submit proper documentation to USCIS to prove the urgent need behind getting your case expedited, okay? I hope that helps. Would cancellation of removal be approved if you have over 15 arrests with 1 misdemeanor and 1 felony in 2022 from your Nike? Wow, my love. Okay, if you have 15 arrests, I'm going to assume that most of these were dismissed because you only talk about 1 misdemeanor and 1 felony, right? So I'm hoping for your sake you don't have 15 convictions. If you have a criminal conviction and you are in removal proceedings and you are asking the judge, the immigration judge, for something called cancellation of removal, they are going to need to analyze every single arrest. And they take arrests very, very seriously for cancellation of removal. Can you still get approved for cancellation of removal? Yes, of course. It depends on what your convictions are for. But they do take arrests very seriously. Even something as simple as a DUI can be a very big problem in immigration court for the purpose of cancellation of removal, okay? Now, if you are seeking cancellation of removal in court and you have criminal history, number one thing that I could advise is you need to be upfront with your attorney. And, here are the 3 R's: remorse, regret, and rehabilitation. You've got to show remorse for what you did. You've got to show regret for having broken the law, and you have to show that you have rehabilitated yourself. So if your convictions are from 2022, those are very recent, my love, and it might be difficult to show that you're rehabilitated if your convictions are 2022. However, if your convictions are from 2002, instead, that's like 20 something years ago, then you have an easier time showing the rehabilitation, okay? So I hope that helps. It's not completely impossible, but if you have any sort of convictions, your road is going to be just a step more tougher in immigration court, okay? I hope that helps. Aman, I've been trying to terminate my removal proceedings based on approved VAWA last 16 months, but no help yet. If you are in court and you're trying to terminate your removal proceedings based on an approved VAWA or an approved application, you need to have patience because number one, if your case is already closed, meaning that the judge already granted an order of removal against you, then it typically can take up to 2 years to reopen your case. But if you have an active proceeding and you have an upcoming hearing date, then it'll take a little bit less time. But if your hearing date is far in the future, or if you have no future hearing dates, basically you have to think of it like this: like every DHS attorney is going to have a stack of cases on their desk that they're working on. Your case might be at the bottom. They have to work through all the things that are at the top, meaning whatever has a hearing date coming up first, those are the people that are going to end up having, like their motions heard and get a decision. So if it's been 16 months, it's not unheard of. You might have to wait a little bit longer. Safira, receipt notice was sent 7 weeks ago, but nobody told me anything. Are you sure, my love? I'm going to check on that. So sorry. I'm going to check on that. We normally send out all the receipts within a week at least. So I'm going to look into that, Safira. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. Let's see. DACA recipients with legal entry, son is 21 years old. How long is the process? From Ariana. Ariana, wow, okay, that's good. This is an unusual fact pattern. If you are a DACA recipient with a legal entry and your son is 21 years old, then theoretically, as long as you have no other disqualifying factors, your son should be able to petition for you. And that process would take probably less than 1 year, Ariana. But I want to say here are a couple of things that can, if you are a parent of a 21-year-old U.S. citizen child and you want to be petitioned by them, here are a few things that can make your case difficult, if not impossible, for your son or your daughter to petition for you. Number one, if you don't have a legal entry, then your son or your daughter cannot petition for you while you're here in the U.S. But stay tuned. I'll tell you some things that you might be able to do. Number two, even if you have a legal entry, if you have any fraud or misrepresentation that you have committed in order to get an immigration benefit, or you have some other type of inadmissibility, then you may need a waiver in your case. And the only way to get a waiver is to have a qualifying husband, wife, or parent who is a U.S. citizen. So if your child is petitioning for you, then you may not technically have a qualifying relative to do a waiver with, and your child may not be able to successfully help you get a green card. So what are your other alternatives if you have a 21-year-old child and you need to be sponsored by them, but you may not qualify to get your green card into the United States? Well, number one thing, you may not like to hear it, but I always like to ask people, how is your relationship with your kids? Because if you have a 21-year-old U.S. citizen child who is just not being good to you, they curse you, they treat you badly, they take your money, they force you to pay for things, they basically make your life miserable, they might threaten you with immigration, and you might be scared of your child, then you might qualify for a VAWA self-petition. And a lot of parents don't like to do this because they are afraid, first of all, as a mom or a dad, you love your kids no matter what. And what I want to say is that people feel afraid to do a VAWA self-petition as a parent because somehow they think that they're hurting their kids or betraying their kids. But you have spent probably 25, 30 years here in the US struggling, helping your kids grow up and providing a stable home for them. And now it is your turn. It is your turn right now to take the step to protect yourself, right? And if this is the way to do it, then so be it, right? Better than you being deported from the United States and not being here at all. Second, this case does not harm your child. It is confidential. They will not know about it. It is not any sort of public record. We have successfully helped get green cards for several parents of U.S. citizens whose kids were abusive to them, emotionally abusive, verbally abusive, sometimes physically abusive. Physical abuse is one of the least common things that we see in parent cases. Emotional abuse is really where it's at. So if your spouse, if your child screams at you, curses at you, they're not respectful to you as a parent, they tell you to go back, they basically call you stupid for not knowing English. There's so many things that could happen. These are all parts of a pattern of abuse that may help you qualify for a VAWA green card. Now, if you're also a parent, but you're telling me that everything between you and your child is perfect and they've never given you problems, but you have either an illegal entry or you have a fraud issue and you can't be petitioned by your child, then I would also say let's look at something called a T visa, because a T visa is something that to me is a miracle visa. It helps with so many situations where a person may otherwise not be able to adjust their status or get a green card, including it can help fix persons who have unlawful entry, permanent bars, false claims to U.S. citizenship, and misrepresentation or fraud. So there are a variety of immigration issues that we might be able to fix through a T visa. So where can a T visa be possible? Well, what I want to say, the most common things that I see in immigrant communities is through employment. A lot of people are working for people who are really, really terrible to them. Just the past few days, we've gotten several calls where people have told us that their bosses have threatened to send them back home. What kind of a boss threatens to send you back home? I just wrote a case right now. I just approved a case right now for a client whose boss would constantly curse at her and call her and call them. I don't want to say it. It's a Jamaican curse word that starts with the B and ends with a T or a D. Okay. Every time she did something at work that he didn't like, and constant humiliation, constant threatening, getting intimidating in front of the worker. These are things that may qualify for a T visa, because if you're essentially afraid of who you work for, you're afraid of your employer harming you somehow, embarrassing you, screaming at you, they make outright threats to send you back home or to call immigration on you. They don't pay you properly. If you get injured at work, you cut your hand and they tell you, wrap it up, go back to work, or else. Those are the things that may help you qualify for a T visa. And also earlier this week, we just got approved for a T visa for somebody for whom we did a case where there was no work relationship, but rather a domestic relationship. Our client was in a marriage where her spouse treated her like a servant, and she had to do lots of things and just was not treated like a partner, but rather as a servant. And she had to do all these things underneath the threat of violence. This is what we call domestic violence turned into human trafficking, and we just got her approved. And now this client is going to be on her way to a green card, okay? She was not eligible to be petitioned by her spouse because of a variety of reasons, and she was not eligible for VAWA, but she was eligible for a T visa, okay? So hope does exist. I don't want you guys to give up. And I'm sorry, I have not mentioned our phone number. Our phone number is 212-248-7907. We are taking cases all over the United States. I'm based in New York, and even though I'm here in New York City, my home, my love, my most favorite place in the world, we work with clients all over the United States. So do not be afraid to call us. Especially for those of you who've been watching me and following me for a long time, I want to say, if I'm coming across your feed, it's for a reason. You need to hear what I have to say, and you need to know that there might be a way for you, okay? So don't give up. I also know that times are especially scary right now. You may not want to leave your house. You're afraid every time you do step foot outside. And what I would say to you is to not give up, because you didn't come this far. You didn't work this hard to just sit in silence and in the dark. Okay, 212-248-7907. Okay. LLC, what is going on with prima facie termination? Why are they taking so long? I don't know. They're taking long with everything these days. I really don't know what to say. I Adam is asking, my receipt date for the I-360 and I-485 is February 2023. What's the processing time? Adam, congratulations for getting your VAWA case filed. I will say that our latest approvals, our latest green cards that we've had were for VAWAs that we filed in, I think, 2021, 2022 type area. So it's always like within a year. So I would say average right now, we're seeing about 4 years processing. Hello, MBJ. My DACA receipt expires June 2026. When I renew and my VAWA I filed through your firm expires in 2029. Ambi, so yeah, I mean, your VAWA work permit is going to be good for a long time. Your DACA renewal, you might want to get that filed in January. All right. Okay. Is more discretion for waivers given to those in removal than those who are not? From KK, not exactly. I think, you know, in removal, you have the tougher additional factor of getting your case heard by a judge. So I think if you're doing a waiver in front of a judge, it just depends on the judge, honestly. Let's see. Do you work with the U.S. citizens to help them bring their mom to the U.S. from Lucky Kevin? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. You can give us a call. If you have a relative who's outside the United States and you want to bring them to the United States, these are the types of relatives that you can easily bring to the United States. Well, not easily. It still takes time, but these are the categories that are eligible to be brought to the United States. Number one, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can petition for your mom, dad, husband, wife, and child under 21, and they're considered immediate relatives. So the wait time is almost none for a visa to be available. However, the process still takes about 1 year to 2 years. If you're a U.S. citizen, you can petition for your brother or sister, but it takes like 10 to 20 years. If you're a green card holder, you can petition for your child or for your spouse, child under 21. That will take a couple of years or more, depending on the visa bulletin. And lastly, if you're an adult child of 21 years older or more of a U.S. citizen, or you're married, then your case can also take quite some time. Oh, all right. Ms. Gaune filed her VAWA just from watching my videos and QAs. I'm so glad they helped you, and I hope you get your EAD soon, Ms. Gaune. All right, good for you. I love to hear that. I have been ghosted by someone from your office from Kadzo. I don't know what that means. If you're a current client, we can't ghost you if you're a current client, Kadzo. If you're not a current client and you're trying to call us, I would recommend that you just call us again, okay? 212-248-7907. Okay, Marvin, here's your question. My question, I have not received an approval for the I-765. We filed it in February 2025. Marvin, I would say that's pretty normal. I would say it takes average anywhere from 6 to 10 months to get an EAD approved, okay, for your initial application. I hope that helps. Harry filed his U visa in 2019. How long will it take to get the approval for the U? Harry, I would say it takes about 5 to 7 years to get the U visa approval. This could also go up in the future too. Ariadsa. Okay, can I become a citizen after being a resident for 2 or 3 years and tratar de darle los papeles a mi mamá que ha vivido en Estados Unidos por 11 años? Ariadsa, si usted tiene una tarjeta verde, en muchos casos necesita esperar para 5 años, especialmente si ha recibido su tarjeta verde atrás una visa U o una visa T o atrás un caso que no incluye un esposo ciudadano, ¿sí? Pero si ha recibido su tarjeta verde, su residencia atrás, adentro VAWA o una matrimonio, solo necesita esperar para 3 años, ¿sí? Y después recibiendo su ciudadanía, sí, podía aplicar para su mamá, pero si su mamá va a ser elegido o va a poder ser okay, let me repeat this. Sorry, my Spanish is so bad. Si es posible para aplicar para su mamá, depende en muchas cosas. Por ejemplo, depende en cuál tipo de entrada su mamá tiene. Depende si su mamá necesita una perdón y depende si su mamá tiene algunos barras, ¿sí? En inmigración. Arriaga puede llamarnos a 212-248-7907, ¿ok? Make you leap, hello. California Dreamer, any info on what's going on with that? What can I do to protect myself? I do have a little bit of information for those of you who have DACA. This is not complete information, but there is a case going on where I think it might very well be possible that in the future they will start accepting new DACA applications again, except for the state of Texas. So Texas, if you're out there, you guys are always doing things your own way. But yeah, hopefully I'll have some better updates for DACA sometime soon. Okay. Jose Suarez, current client, who will be reviewing my file before sending to USCIS. Josue, it will either be me or one of my attorneys, but I'm going to write your name down so we can give you a call. So just so you know, like if you're a current client and if you have any issue in your case, especially including any criminal issue or any sort of removal issue, your case gets looked at like 3 times, and especially I look at your case to make sure everything's going to be okay, because this is something I do not mess around with, and that means that it takes a little bit longer for us to complete your case getting filed, because it goes through me finally, and I'm pretty busy. So I thank you for your patience, Josue. Muchas gracias para su paciencia, Josue, y vamos a llamarle en estos días para informarle quién va a revisar su caso, ¿ok? Y cuánto tiempo va a tardar. Okay, if I filed for VAWA for problems with my spouse, will it affect my I-601A? From Grace. Well, Grace, that's a good question. If you have filed an I-601A, filing a VAWA may not affect, but if you have filed an I-485, then it may cancel out your I-601A, okay? What if I only lived with my abusive spouse for 3 months, but only have very little bona fide because we were still working on collecting docs? Oh, that's such a good question from Jesse. Jesse, thank you for asking that question. If you want to file for a VAWA, or if you're having problems in your marriage, but you only live together for 3 months and you don't have a lot of documents, I want to tell you that it's going to be okay, because you don't need as much evidence as you think. We have gotten cases approved with just an affidavit, sometimes with just a psychological evaluation. Sometimes even I'm like, wow, this case really got approved with just an affidavit, and I thank God for those cases. But VAWA, the evidentiary standard for VAWA cases is any credible evidence. And any credible evidence means even just your affidavit. Of course, you know, they might challenge that. They might challenge that, but it can be approved because the law is the law, right? The law says any credible evidence. So as long as you don't have any inconsistencies inside of your case or anything like that they could search online that creates an inconsistency in your case, then they have to accept what you give them. And we regularly remind USCIS of the burden of proof that is prescribed by law, and we hold them accountable to it, okay? We have never gotten a case denied for not having enough evidence, okay? And any lawyer that tells you you need to have police reports, you need to have medical reports. You need to have physical abuse to get your case approved is simply wrong. That is an uninformed fact that is harming people like those of you out there who are suffering in your relationships from being able to freely file for VAWA. And we have helped so many people without like a lick of evidence, honestly. And our cases have been successful because, or despite that fact, okay? If you're looking for help, give us a call, 212-248-7907. All right, guys, that is all the time that I have for today, but it's been lovely talking to all of you. I wanna leave you all with just a little bit of words of hope. These days are not easy. If you were watching the news, my number one advice to you is to stop the scroll as much as you can, because you have a responsibility to your dreams, to your family. You owe it to yourself to be able to get up every single day and still have a little joy in your heart. Don't let these people who are in power right now make you feel that you don't have a right to be here, okay? The law is the law. If you are qualified for something, what I leave you with is to make sure you find out what you're eligible for, because you do not deserve to give up, okay? My name is Moumita Rahman, and I'm an immigration attorney, and I'll see you all next time.